I would like to give a warm welcome to our first speaker, who is a co-founder of Pipedrive and a VP of product at Pipedrive, Martin Henk. So please give him a warm welcome.
Hello.
Okay, so Martin, it's great that you could make it here to this special event and, tell a little bit more about Pipedrive here to the local guys. So maybe could you just start a little bit, just briefly about yourself, where are you from, and how did you grow up?
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Henk. Well, my name is Martin, but since we have 13 Martins working at Pipedrive, everyone calls me by my last name. I don't know what happened in Estonia in the 80s, but kind of pretty much every male child was named Martin. So we had 4 of them in my class in middle school. So I'm from Estonia. I'm from a really small town called Haapsalu, only 10,000 people. So kind of pretty much everyone knew everybody. And kind of that's my background, kind of.
And I know that once I look, about your entrepreneurial, journey, you didn't start with a Pipedrive. You actually had some previous, entrepreneurial, some experience. So maybe could you tell us a little bit about this? Because if it was successful or
it was not. So early in my life, in high school already, I started kind of learning programming and then kind of earning my basically earning money to buy computer gear by kind of developing websites and stuff like that. And after that, I kept kind of starting companies, or at least tried to start companies. And one of the ones that we really tried was a online booking startup in 2004, I think, with some of the friends from college, and that's a remarkable story because we started it. It was one of the kind of first SaaS startups in Estonia, and kind of on the technology side, it was pretty remarkable. We were doing all of the modern things like APIs and desktop clients, and it was a really cool thing. But on the business side, we failed pretty miserably. So we got to 20 customers, and 10 years later, or no, even more later, there's still kind of 20 customers. So, so it didn't die, but it became this classic zombie startup that kind of didn't grow either. So that was a really good experience, kind of learning a lot. We made all of the mistakes you could ever make in a startup. Kind of, there's a really long laundry list that we all kind of made. Kind of every mistake in the book, basically. And then because we ran out of money, everyone kind of left, and then we started some other things, which are not very kind of remarkable. And then we started. I didn't start, actually. Some people that I knew started this company called United Dogs and Cats, which was a social network for pets. Right? So, well, rather for kind of people that are really into dogs or cats. So you could make a profile for your pet, upload your pictures of your dogs and your cats, and then can talk to other dog people or cat ladies online. And I joined them kind of a year later, and was one of the kind of leading people there. And that was another really interesting journey of one of the first startups in Estonia that was trying to kind of copy the Silicon Valley model of kind of raising money and then going global and then growing really quickly and doing all of the things kind of right, at the same time doing everything really wrong. And it was successful for a little bit. We, I think, got to kind of 500,000 registered users, and then went bankrupt in a very public way. And I was glad I was not the chief executive of that company, because Ragnar, who later became one of the co-founders of Pipedrive, really got a lot of shit in the Estonian media for kind of not being successful in a startup. Because at that moment in Estonia, the culture kind kind of hadn't really gone to a point where kind of people could understand that kind of building startups doesn't always mean that you start a company, you raise money, you become super successful, and then kind of that's history. But most startups actually fail, but that hadn't really kind of caught up yet. So yeah, again, we made a lot of mistakes, learned a lot, and out of the rubble of United Dogs and Cats, three of us, myself, Ragnar, and Tayor, we were kind of 3 of the 5 founders of Pipedrive. So yeah, a lot of failures, a lot of learnings along the way.
But would you say that this, the most important lesson what you learned, maybe what formed you, shaped you to start Pipedrive, some of your entrepreneurial, experience, what is the most important for you? What you learn, and after that you was able to start something new.
Yeah, so different learnings from each of these startups. So from the booking startup, I learned about the importance of kind of having a shareholders agreement and vesting. So in 2004, no one in Estonia had ever heard of vesting. So raise of hands, who knows what vesting is? All right, so basically, when you start a company, it's very common in a small company to kind of group of friends comes together, like there were 5 of us. We split the company evenly. Everyone got 20% and it was kind of this way. But we didn't have an agreement about kind of who will put how much effort into this company and for how long. So a year later, when we ran out of money, I was the kind of last one standing in that company. Everyone else had left. I was kind of keeping it afloat and making sure that that the customers we had, the 20 of them, weren't kind of. I'm sorry, yeah, but still, like if you have 20 real companies depending on your service, you don't want to kind of just tell them that, yeah, tomorrow I'm going to shut it down and kind of go back to pen and paper, kind of getting your bookings in your calendar. But because we didn't have a shareholders agreement and because we didn't have vesting, and vesting means that people don't just get their shares in the company, but they will get their shares over time, little by little, making sure that if they leave on the 3rd day or the 3rd month or the 1st year, then they don't get their entire share of what they should get, but they only get it kind of 4 years later when they actually have stuck with the company for 4 years. And that's the kind of usual agreement. So 1st year you get nothing, and the 2nd year you get 25% of what you will get, and then kind of every day you get a little, and when you hit 4 years, then you get the entire share that you should have gotten. We had never heard of anything about that, so I was kind of left with a company that I owned 20% of the company and 100% of the responsibility. So that was stupid, right? One of the biggest lessons from that era. From the second one, from the pet startup, we learned a lot more because we got a lot further. And one of the ones we learned was the importance of hiring. And to this day, Pipedrive is slightly obsessed with hiring. Slightly is an understatement. So basically, in that pet startup, we got to maybe a dozen people that were super great. And then we hired someone that wasn't an A player, or wasn't kind of a great fit. And you've probably heard the saying that kind of when you hire B players, they will hire C players. Well, we hired someone that started hiring F people. And the stories, and now, many years later, they sound funny. When kind of you talk about kind of employees kind of bringing company laptops to a pawn shop and kind of finding a lot of vodka bottles under the table in the office. Back then, it wasn't that funny. So we learned the importance of really vetting every single person that you hire, not only if they're able to do the job, but also if they actually fit the company and if they're also able to hire other people that fit the company. So today at Pipedrive we have more than 400 people, and we have kind of gone through some extreme lengths vetting every single person that has joined the company, and I believe therefore we have a a much better work environment and a functioning company. And the other thing we learned was the importance of vetting your investors. So in the pet company, many of the investors, kind of the only criteria was that they had money and they were willing to give us the money, which probably isn't the best idea of kind of qualifying your investors. And the result was that they gave us the money, and the expectations they had was like completely misaligned with anything we had in mind. So that generated a lot of problems. So when we started Pipedrive, another thing that we kept in mind was the importance of really understanding if the investors, first of all, are they kind of willing to give us money, but even more importantly, are they people that we actually kind of want to spend time with? Do we want to hang out with them? Do they understand what our business model is? And not only understand, but are they supportive of this business model? Because oftentimes investors see, oh yeah, that's a cute little company that you have here in Estonia, and that, oh yeah, this SMB thingy, yeah, it's nice that it's growing, but I will give you this money, and then kind of next week you will go into enterprise like every other company. So problems like these, they can be kind of prevented by vetting your investors better. Therefore, our fundraising is always much longer and much more complicated and much more painful than for most companies. But at the same time, the results are also so much better because all of our investors are actually, first of all, people that we like and want to kind of deal with, but also kind of they have an understanding and a shared vision for the company and the business model. So therefore, it's been much better.
And so far, how many investors do you have in Pipedrive?
So it's difficult to say because we have many. We have many, and they have kind of a different size investment. So in the early days, we've raised a lot of kind of rounds. In the very beginning, we had a friends, fools, and family round by someone that kind of just believed in the team, and I still, like every day, I admire his vision. Maybe it was kind of unfounded, but like he gave us all of his savings basically to start Pipedrive, based on just kind of belief in us. Later, we had many angel rounds. You could call them party rounds because kind of many smaller investors put a lot of money together, so no one had much of an impact. Out of the big VCs, we have Bessemer Venture Partners and Atomico and Insight now. Mm-hmm. So three kind of big name VCs in the company.
And what is your evaluation? If you are right now, in this part with numbers, it's possible to mention?
No.
No. Okay.
I can say that over the 8 years, we have raised more than 80 million of funding.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I'm just curious, how many of you have some direct experience with Pipedrive? Could you just raise your hand? Okay, so maybe could you just really briefly tell, what is Pipedrive and what is added value for maybe others?
Sure. So Pipedrive is a tool for salespeople that are selling something expensive that takes a long time to close. And these salespeople are usually in small or medium-sized companies. And I know there should be a way of explaining it without taking 2 minutes, but that's the most humane way I've learned to kind of explain what we do. You could call it a CRM, some people do, but it's much more kind of focused than just a kind of customer relationship management. It's specifically meant for salespeople. It's specifically meant for salespeople that have a long sales cycle. Usually that means selling something expensive. Otherwise, it kind of makes no sense to have a long sales cycle. And the main benefit is that kind of if you have many of these deals going on at the same time, it's easy to lose track of kind of how far along each of these deals are, what you last spoke about, what the next thing is that you should do with this customer. So if you have kind of more than 10 deals going on, it's really good to have a tool that makes it really visual for you. So you go in and you can immediately understand how far along each of these things are, what you last spoke about, what you next have to do with the customer, so that kind of nothing falls through the cracks. You don't forget about any things that you agreed on, any commitments that you took. So basically, it's built as a productivity tool for salespeople. And 8 years ago, it was kind of revolutionary. It's like everyone else was producing this run-of-the-mill, very generic database that you could just use to kind of put data into. And that was kind of, there wasn't any benefit for the salespeople in using a CRM, because that was just meant for some manager a couple levels up to see what the salespeople were doing and running some reports. But the salespeople just kind of had a form to fill out, and that was more of a chore than a benefit. Pipedrive changed that, kind of made it a productivity tool actually beneficial for the salesperson to be better at what they're doing, having more control, and kind of selling more. So that's the main benefit of Pipedrive.
How many customers do you have right now?
We have more than 75,000 companies all over the world.
And the typical customer is some kind of SMB, maybe, I don't know, around 50 employees, 10 people in sales team, or what is like a typical structure of these guys who would benefit from it? Because for corporations, I don't know if it's for them.
Yeah, it's not meant for enterprise companies. So it is mostly small or medium-sized companies. Mm-hmm. The sales team is usually less than 10 people, okay. And that's the best fit. But we also have a number of larger customers, some kind of well-known brands that are using Pipedrive. But the main focus is on SMBs.
Okay. What are your, because you are co-founder, you are a VP of product, so what are your current priorities? You know, which you are, where is your focus right now at Pipedrive on the global level?
Yeah, focus is a word I like a lot. So on one hand, because our goal is to help salespeople keep focus. Because like anything you really do, you need to pay attention. But sales is especially difficult because you need to invite yourself into busy days of other people that kind of don't necessarily want to hear from you. And it's really easy to lose focus when you kind of have your fourth or fifth no in a row. Like, it's very easy to kind of just slip and then start doing something that is not very productive. So kind of helping salespeople keep their focus is one of our main goals. And also kind of keeping our own focus on making sure that we build software that can be described somehow. It's not kind of a universal tool for anything you do, but kind of it's a very specific tool meant for salespeople. So in both ways, keeping your focus and saying no a lot is a big part of what I've been doing in Pipedrive over the last, I don't know how many years. So what's our focus? Mainly, it is to kind of help SMBs succeed. So like in a small company, if you're selling, if you're successful in sales, you survive. It's a matter of life and death, really. I mean, yeah, it's overly dramatic, but it's not about kind of increasing something in an enterprise by kind of, I don't know, 2%. It's really about an SMB kind of being successful, being able to kind of sell their product and then start growing, or going out of business, because if you don't sell, you can't survive. So that's really the goal. Helping salespeople be more efficient, helping sales managers to be more efficient, and therefore kind of helping SMBs be more successful.
So would you say that these priorities are the scaling, get some more market shares to help more, and some customer service, to really know if it's helping, to these customers or not? This is definitely something important for you as well.
Well, yeah, we definitely see that it is helping customers, and we do see that there's a huge need for it. So if you think of the SMB market, I mean, there's millions, tens of millions of companies, and almost all of them are still managing all of their sales on pen and paper or spreadsheets. So the market is just incredibly big. So the opportunity is huge, kind of helping companies kind of get better at sales, get more efficient, more organized. And the ones that have migrated to Pipedrive, we see that kind of if there's even a little bit of kind of willingness to put some effort into kind of doing sales and then getting better at sales, then they do get a lot better.
Okay, and one of the last question: what is your vision, for you in the next 5 years with Pipedrives? What would you like to achieve?
So I'm the volume guy in the company. So there are like some people that are kind of more interested in figuring out how to get the most MRR out of all of the customers and kind of figuring out this kind of upgrade path and all of that stuff. I'm the guy that is mostly interested in volume. So right now, this kind of 75,000 customers. Well, on one hand, I'm super excited about that, and it's nice to have so many because, as you heard, one of my earlier companies only had 20. But 75,000 is not nearly enough. I want to see hundreds of thousands of companies using Pipedrive and getting more efficient through that. We also have this kind of pretty great ecosystem of kind of more than 100 integrations that have been built against Pipedrive, providing much more value for Pipedrive users. So I really want to see that ecosystem growing much bigger and much more kind of successful. And in 5 years, I would like to see kind of new startups launching and utilizing this like real big platform of hundreds of thousands of SMBs and building their startup on top of Pipedrive, kind of providing these plugins and tools and add-ons for Pipedrive, because then you don't have to figure out your hosting or your billing or any of that stuff. You already have hundreds of thousands of potential customers right there. Yeah, big plans.
That's nice. That's great to have big plans. And what would you advise as entrepreneur to other entrepreneurs as some key points how to be successful, or what is important to have some sort of skills, or what is important if you would like to be successful? 3 points.
Jesus Christ. That's a tough one. I'm guessing like just don't give up. Like whatever shit happens to you, don't give up. It's like this startup grind. I think the grind is a very good name for this thingy. So when you read the stories, it always seems that some people were just incredibly successful overnight, and they just came along and they founded Instagram, and now kind of everyone is a billionaire. And there are, obviously there are some exceptions, but if you kind of dig deeper, you understand that, all of them struggled for 10 or 15 years before that, went through hell and many times over before they kind of started their kind of SpaceX or Tesla or whatever. So, having this ability to bounce back and kind of get over your stuff and then kind of keep coming back and keep trying, probably the most important thing. The other one is kind of keep learning, keep an open mind. It's really sad to see people that have stopped learning. And there are so many people that kind of, they reach a point where they say that, I'm ready. Like, I've been around, so I have experience, and kind of, I don't need to learn anymore. And it's very easy to kind of drop into this mode of pattern matching. I've done this kind of 3 times before, so I have all of the answers, and I don't need to learn anymore. I really hope I haven't reached that point, and like if you want to be successful, I think you can never reach that point really. Like learning from other people, learning from books, learning from kind of whatever you need to do or get your hands on. That's important. The third one is kind of get along with other people. It's really easy to forget that point. I made that mistake like too many times over. Like you believe that you're on this crusade and you have this kind of goal, and I need to go and I need to get this done, and kind of if you don't get it, then kind of just get out of my way. In the end, it doesn't serve you well. At least it hasn't served me that well. So kind of I'm not saying that you need to kind of kiss every ass that comes along, but kind of having some level of kind of human decency towards other people, that kind of that really helps.
Okay, so you are not saying to be like Steve Jobs, only focus, and don't think too much about around the connections with the people.
I mean, there are probably like 2 or 3 people in the world that can afford that. Kind of being an Elon Musk or being a Steve Jobs. The rest of us actually need to kind of get along with other people, and like shit is so difficult these days. Like if you think of anything, getting anything done requires so many different people coming together. It used to be simple, kind of, I don't know, building a hammer. Like one person could actually build a hammer. And when I got started in 2000, one person could actually build something. Today, kind of like stuff is getting so complicated. You need a team of people to come together and actually want to work with you and together with you doing stuff. So I don't think, out of the 7.5 billion or whatever, how many people we have on this planet, kind of, only 2 or 3 can afford to be an asshole and still be successful, and the rest of us actually have to get along.
Yeah, right. That's a good one. So thank you very much, Martin, for right now, and we'll give you time to join us at the end for the Q&A. And now I would like to welcome the other guys, if it's okay.
Yeah. Hey, thank you.
You can go through here. Okay, and I would like to welcome to the stage 3 other guys. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Hi. So, maybe you can introduce yourself by round.
All right. Hi, my name is Thijs, and I'm a senior product manager for Uber, and I help build out the office that we have in Amsterdam, where we've grown from about 10 people to 700 people in the last 4 years.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, my name is Ashwini, and I'm a technical product manager at Facebook, and I work on the ads team in London.
I have my own microphone. That's so cool. I'm Maria. I'm from Pipedrive. I'm the head of core product, helping my team build a tool that helps salespeople be successful.
Okay, so great. Welcome here today. And since, this panel is about staying innovative in the, rapidly growing companies, which all of you are a part, I would like to ask you, what do you think is the most important to stay innovative and keep the startup spirit? Maybe ladies, we'll start.
Okay, so Facebook is not really a startup anymore, so this answer might be a little skewed, but I'll go anyway. So at Facebook, we really believe that innovation is not one team's job. So innovation is really spread out across the company, across every single team, and pretty much across every single role. So we have a really nice culture of democratizing decision making. So if there is a team that has seen some data, there's patterns in data, and has some insights around a problem in the market, they are free to actually go experiment on that. So there's a lot of teams trying to innovate on different areas that may or may not be part of core Facebook business, and that is encouraged, and so is failure. So the combination of those two things actually helps us create a lot of new things that were otherwise not part of the plan, right? Mm-hmm. So a good example would be our recently we built this donation product, right? And it was literally done by a single engineer that thought that it's a great idea to rally people around donating for a social cause. And what happened is, once people started seeing traction in that and their numbers were looking good, we started to apply a team to that and try to get more and more market research to understand what else could be done better. So essentially like the spirit of innovation is there across the company, although we've grown so big now.
Are you using some kind of platform, for sharing these, ideas and innovations with other offices around the world, or is it really about some local innovation at place, or?
Yeah, I mean, we use Facebook to actually run Facebook. So instead of Slack or other platforms, we actually build our own platform and use that to share ideas around. And so if you get a bunch of people liking your idea, then you kind of rally a team behind it. And then it starts to become like something that people want to come together and solve for, essentially, right? So it's not, we share a lot, we share openly, and that is all the way from leadership all the way to every single engineer who works on teams, data scientists, designers, no matter what, we have a sharing culture that allows us to do that quite openly. We're very different from Apple and Amazon.
Okay. So, Maria?
To build up on top of some of what she said, I think the key is in communication. So we're in a very different situation than Facebook, of course. So when I joined the company, we were 4 product managers, I believe, a couple of designers, and that was about it. And we just, we're sitting next to each other, and if we had an idea, we just turn our head and discuss it, and we got it rolling. Now a team of what was 4 or 6 people, it's about 10 times that size, and the challenge is to just set enough process so that things remain in order, there's no chaos, but so that you don't sort of hinder people's inspiration and you don't stop people from sharing ideas. So I think, how do you keep it flowing? Going to your question, we're still trying to figure it out, but I think it's about remembering that great ideas will come from anywhere, and you have to keep the channels open so that these ideas can flow naturally and can then sort of, be explored.
Okay, makes sense.
So I think we do 3 things. Some of it similar to this, and I'll add a little bit to it. So definitely the whole idea of you want to decentralize decision making is very powerful. And what that effectively means is that the way we work at Uber is that you have teams of about 10 to 15 people who work together, and they have a certain mission, a certain thing that they want to accomplish and achieve. And this team will be built up of engineers and designers and data scientists and operations people and product managers. But the key here is that the team itself has all the people it needs to have to be able to do whatever it wants to do, to be able to be successful. So if they want to add a feature to the rider app or the driver app, they can do it just by themselves. And to be able to do that, we've built up a lot of tools and platforms internally that give individuals the ability to change things in our apps without crashing the whole thing. So we have very strong experimentation tools and analytics and just frameworks and architectures in general that anyone can add any piece of code. It will get reviewed and you can ship it next week. And I think that allows for these ideas that come from anyone to very rapidly be built out and put into production, and then you can test it and see how it works. So that's definitely one. You want to decentralize that decision making and build frameworks and tools to allow for that to happen. The other one is the way that we organize our initiatives is with a objectives and key results framework. I'm not quite sure. Has anyone ever used objectives and key results here? So I see a couple hands. All right, cool. So the way that works is at a company level, we'll for let's say 6 months, 12 months, we'll say what 5 objectives, 5 things that we want to achieve. Let's say we want to become a safer form of transport. And then you'll have some metrics that we measure that, incidents per million trips, for example. Or we want to become a more efficient company. And then it's about cost per kilometer, these kind of things. And then that's sort of what the company uses to set the overall direction. But then it's up to these teams that I just described, these decentralized teams, to figure out for themselves how they will contribute to this. And that's where you leave these individuals and these teams to just go like, oh, I think I could do X, I could do Y. And as long as it aligns with those 5 overall objectives, then you're free to go do that. And that's why things can start really small with just a couple people, and then maybe in just one city. And if it works, you'll have the data to back it up, and you'll be able to roll it out to more countries. And the third thing that I wanted to add was, what I've noticed very strongly is that, and I know this is, we repeat it a lot, but I just see that we forget about it. We forget about actually doing it, which is talk to your customers. Just like literally sit down and ask them what they need. And it's so easy to just come up with something, go like, oh, we'll go build this. But it is really, really hard to actually sit down with a customer, follow them, observe them, and figure out like, okay, what is it that you actually need? Because customers usually are very, very different people with different needs and different goals in life than you are. At Uber, my team builds products for Egypt and Brazil and Mexico, and these drivers in those countries, they have a completely different lifestyle and a completely different goal in life than I might have. Yet I need to very deeply understand them, and I need to figure out like, okay, what is it that I can do to make your work and your life more successful? So actually talking to customers is something that we say a lot, but generally people skip that step. But that's been incredibly powerful for us. So we do, the way that we enforce that is and again, each team decides this for themselves, but for us is we do a research trip to a country every 2 months. So we'll just schedule it in the year, and we'll go like, okay, in February, we'll go to a country and we'll go sit with drivers and we'll go follow them. And then we're going to do the same thing in April.
What was the most funny moment during these rides?
I think, so there's, so many moments, but the most, so I'll give you the most impactful one first, and then so the most impactful one would have been a trip and interview that we did in Mexico, where there was a driver. And the way this works is like, so you have an Uber driver who sits in the car, and then you sit in the front passenger seat, right? So you can observe, and then when the trip request comes in and the driver is going to do a trip, the driver will call the rider and will ask if it's okay if there's someone else in the car. So you can do like real life observation. That's a luxury that we have with the type of business that we run and the type of customers that we have. So the most impactful one was this particular driver in Mexico City who he was telling me about his work and his days, and he was like, oh, I'm driving 12 hours a day. It's really intense. And but then then you ask a little bit more. You go like, okay, but why are you doing this? And he's like, well, before I couldn't work and my kids couldn't go to school, but now I have this opportunity to make this money that I can even send them to private school. And for that family in Mexico, that was, at that point, you're opening up so many more opportunities for your children that he's just incredibly motivated by that. And he's like, this will allow them to be successful in life, and that's why he was doing that. So I think that's where once you start building for 75,000 customers, or millions in our case, or tens of millions, it's very easy to overlook those very personal stories. Funny one, okay.
Maybe we can jump.
We can jump. I think
think about it. Okay, so since all of you are focused on a product, I know that some of you pick some of these sides, but what do you think is most important for providing the good product, good valuable product or service? From your point, what is most important? Me, Maria?
Yeah, I think it's on the third point. He said, if you want to provide a valuable product, you need to understand the problem. And if you don't understand it, you need to go and talk to the people who have and are experiencing this problem. So basically talk to your customers. It's about keeping that customer in mind. It's about, building that empathy, trying to build context into what situation they are, why is that important for them to solve that problem, what are they after, dig deep into the goals that they're trying to achieve. And if you focus on that, then whatever you build should come from that. And it ties back to, your question around innovation. There's this this belief that, or what be the word, misunderstanding, right? That innovation is about building something shiny and cool that uses the latest technology and stuff. But innovation many times is just about solving a problem that has been there forever in a different way. And to be able to do that, then you have to be digging into the problem and the people that are experiencing the problem all the time. So if you keep that in mind, it should be fine.
And are you trying to get this feedback from the customers only through the online way, or you are doing some, some direct interviews with the different kind of customers in different countries in person?
We do everything we can. I mean, we do questionnaires, we visit customers where they work at their offices, we do phone interviews, we observe how they use the product. There's a million ways to do it. It's always recommended, UX experts will recommend always interviews or observing the real thing. But when you can't, there's another bunch of tools out there that get you close to that. So.
Okay. And Ashwini, about you, you mentioned that how you are doing it like innovation in a Facebook, and you talked about the team. So what is your answer regarding to this? What is most important to really bring the most valuable product? I guess that it is customer, obviously, in your way, but maybe there are some other points which we'd like to mention.
Yeah, I think our product teams really spend a lot of time just understanding the problem. A lot of other companies I worked with, we didn't spend enough time understanding the problem or the job to be done, right? Like, I really like that framework of what is the job that somebody's trying to get done in the sales scenario, like Hank mentioned. How do we get them to be more productive? In the advertising case, there are businesses who depend on Facebook to actually run their business and reach their customers. So what is that exact job that they need to get done? And essentially spending majority of our product innovation time in understanding, either through data insights, customer research, all the things that Maria mentioned. And then identifying what are the best opportunities to actually solve that problem, right? Sometimes you might not, the obvious solution might not be right on your face, but you kind of have to like look around whether there's an alternative method to solve the problem. That you can only do that when you understand the problem really, really well. And that's something that Facebook emphasizes a lot in all our product teams, where we really make sure that we know what we're solving for and what is the optimal path to actually solve that problem in a very short time. Right? So once we have that, then we can experiment a lot, and then we learn with data and insights, which then makes the product better. So it's sort of this iterative product building and risk-taking that has allowed us to scale so well and also like go global, right? Across many countries, these patterns seem to apply pretty well.
So would you say that right now your focus is only on these areas? This is where is your main focus right now, on these areas of development? Okay. And what would you advise all of you to the product managers with their team around the world? Maybe in a few points. What do you think is most important for them in the sense of leading the team, of these product enthusiasts within the company?
To like how do you become a better product manager, or how do you manage teams in different places?
Manage the team?
Okay. So the really interesting thing about a product management role is that usually the people on your team don't report into you, and it's a very interesting situation because so it's a matrix organization in a sense. Your engineers on your team will report into an engineering manager. Your data scientists will report into a data science manager. And the effect of that is that you can only convince the team to do something if you have the arguments and if you have the conviction and if you can actually give them the examples and the vision that the thing that you want to pursue or that you think the team should be pursuing is something that they actually will do. And in that sense, the version of the product management style that I like best is not a product manager who says like, oh, this is what we're going to do. It's a product manager who creates the environment where the team can get all the customer insight and feedback, and the team together goes like, oh, if that's the problem that exists, then let's figure out a solution. And the product manager is almost just facilitating that. Now, it doesn't always work, right? There will be moments where people on your team want to do different things, and there's no one right answer. And in that case, you'll need someone who actually makes that decision. So that would be the product manager. But hopefully in like 9 out of 10 cases, it's something where you're just facilitating that whole process. Mm-hmm. Now, doing that well, I think is largely depends on you understanding the difficulties of each specific role that's on your team, right? If you have a lot of empathy for what it is to be an engineer, a software engineer, and you understand what are the hard things in software engineering, or if you understand deeply how the design process works, or if you understand how an experiment analysis that the data scientist does, how what is a good way of doing it, what is a bad way of doing it, then these people can see that you have a level of understanding and respect for the work that they do. Mm-hmm. And the more they get that, the easier it's for them to trust you in making certain decisions or in actually guiding the team to get in a certain direction. So facilitation and actually deeply understanding what the other people on your team do and what's difficult about their role and respecting that.
Okay, about you, Ashwini?
Yeah. To add to that, I think facilitation, there's a really nice analogy that Ken Norton talks about from Google, where he says product managers are like jazz players and not like orchestra, like not the person who actually runs the orchestra, mainly because in jazz, it's really like the beauty of that whole performance is that the product manager comes in and improvises, right? So assessing the situation, understanding what the roles are and what impact they might have, and then essentially improvising based on what needs to be done. So every product manager needs to have a very good understanding of all the different roles, what is the scenario like, and how can I make this performance sort of magical without it being felt. And that, I like that analogy a lot, mainly because it speaks to how we need to influence without authority. A lot of the times they don't report to us. And these are all different people who've done different things. So why would they rally behind your mission, right? So that's why it's so important to kind of get that influence going. And that'll happen once you have the problem identified and when there's a common understanding of why this problem is worth solving, right? So that's also very critical.
Okay, thank you. And Maria?
I wish it was an easy question to answer, but it's not. I was reflecting a lot while they were answering to it because I'm not doing product management with a team for over a year now. And I realized that to be able to succeed in the role that I'm doing, I shouldn't completely disconnect from that. And it's a lot of what they describe, right? Being able to facilitate, being able to get people on board, understanding that actually your job will not happen if these people are not on board. It's the people doing the job, and you're actually just taking them in the right direction. But in the role that I'm actually doing right now, I'm actually leading people, and they are product managers. And why I find it important to never disconnect from what they actually do is because if I don't understand what they do, it will be very difficult for me to lead them. I think any sort of leading role, whether you have people reporting to you or not, in the end, it's about people. This is what got me into the role that I'm doing. I care so much about people understanding, not being confused, having clear why the vision is important. Why are we rushing with this? Why do we need to solve this problem? Why do we need to talk to customers? You solve that by actually talking to these people and actually, even more importantly, listening to them. So the same work that we have to do with the customers, listen to them, observe them in their environment, trying to build empathy by stepping on their shoes. You have to do the same thing with the team. You have to listen to them. You have to ask questions. Just be there, be present, be available. But then, and that's why I think it's a very difficult question, if you get too bogged down on that, you might forget that even if your job is to solve problems for customers, ultimately there's a business behind this. And if the problem that you solve doesn't really help the business, then your work is not complete. So you're always squeezed in between, right? Based on the things that I'm focusing on right now, I would say one very important skill for product managers is storytelling. You will absorb the story of the customer, and then you'll have to tell it to others in your team so that they understand. You'll absorb the story of what the business wants to achieve, and you'll go and tell this to your team to get them on board. You'll absorb the story of the stakeholders and what they want to achieve with the business. And, it's just a story everywhere. So you have to be a very good listener. You have to wrap that down in something that makes sense. And then you have to deliver a story that gets people engaged. And I'm not saying I'm actually good at this. I'm trying to figure it out. But I've observed that people that are really successful in product management at whatever level are very good listeners and very good storytellers.
And since you are, responsible for the product strategy at Pipedrive, is there any specific regarding to your strategy? Is your strategy, for example, at home in Estonia compared to the Czech market? Is there something differences? What is your strategy for the Czech market?
We don't have a specific strategy for the Czech market. We're coming after talent. We think there's great engineers here that can help us continue building the product, and that's why we're coming here. But we do, while listening to our customers, identify patterns, and when these patterns become strong enough, then we might make adaptations to the specific markets. Like, Brazil is one of them, or the US. But we have more or less the same strategy for what would be the European market, right?
Okay, so thank you very much, all of you guys. And let's welcome to the last session. And after that, we'll grab all of you for the final Q&A. Thank you very much. And the second one? Oh. Hey, Radek. Hi, Sergey. Tomáš. Yeah, let's have a seat. I don't know where is the second one, or they share it? Oh, okay. So, so our final panel here was the C-level guys, with the technical guys. Great. So, guys, could you just do a quick introduction to all of you?
Okay. The most senior guy can't figure it out. Okay, so I'm Sergey Anikin, and I work as CTO at Pipedrive at the moment. I've been with Pipedrive for 5 years. Before Pipedrive, I actually spent about 7 years in Skype, and I've been visiting Prague quite a lot.
Okay.
My name is Tomáš Řehoř, and I've been at Pipedrive for 2 months. And before that, I spent a lot of time at Skype here, so that's my connection to Estonia.
Hi, I'm Radek. I've been working for Skype for 10 years together with Tomáš. I actually joined Skype like 2 weeks after Tomáš, so we know each other very well. About 1.5 years ago, I left Skype to join the Storios, which is the company that provides a point-of-sale system for gastro places. So.
Okay, thank you very much, gents. And I would like to start with Sergey to ask you, why did you decide, to expand, to Czech Republic, to Prague? Is there anything specific, why you decided to go here?
Well, I guess everyone expects me to say that there are great engineers, and we did a lot of research and looked at different countries and cities and universities and so on and so forth. Fortunately, it has been done before me by Skype. When they opened an office, I don't know, like 10 years ago. And when was it actually?
2007.
2007, so like more than 10 years ago. Tomasz was the first employee of Skype. Now he's the first employee of Pipedrive here, and Radek was also one of the first, right? So all this has been done, but I have a story how actually Pipedrive ended up in Prague or in Czech Republic. When Microsoft bought Skype, I was actually running a project of integrating Skype into Facebook, and it was coming to an end. And I asked, I mean, it was done, finished. And I had an opportunity to choose another project, and one of the projects was to integrate Skype into Windows 8. Also one interesting, challenging project. But there was one interesting side of that I was in Tallinn, but all the positions for the developers who would be participating in this were in Prague. So I said, okay, fine, why not? And when I had Miro, I don't know Miro, where are you? Miro. So Miro was
hiding somewhere, maybe.
Yeah, he's hiding. So this was the guy who was he was hiring for Skype Prague, and he said, "Okay, Sergey, you need 10 developers. Okay, here are 300 CVs. Pick those whom you like." Okay. I picked some, and then come over. So I came to Prague, and I had like 10 hours of interviews on one day, and 8 hours of interviews for the second day. And out of those, I think we hired Fero. Fero, where are you? Yeah, so we hired Fero. We also had some other rounds of interviews, hired some other great guys. So we had this team who was integrating Skype into Windows 8, and it was actually a great project. I think it was very challenging. We had developers both in Estonia and in Prague. Again, what I learned during this project, that you have to get people on either one side or the other. So we had a very nice practice of traveling. Either all Estonian side traveled to Prague one month, or the other month Prague guys came to Estonia. And this created a lot of bond between the team. It was a really nice team. And after 2 years, I decided to leave Microsoft at the time. It wasn't Skype anymore. Pipedrive came with a proposal, very nice proposal, 15 people, 10 developers maybe. Founders went away to California. So I was kind of hired to run the engineering team. And when I was leaving, like obviously there was a lot of crying. I actually have a video. And but after guys calmed down, Fero asked, "Okay, Sergey, when are you going to open Pipedrive office in Prague?" It's like, okay, interesting. Maybe not so soon, but maybe sometime. So 5 years later, here we come.
So would you say that you as well, decided to go to Prague because you knew you have some connections, to the local guys, to some local developers who you thought, yeah, this is something where we could start because, of course, maybe some market potential, but as well that I have this bond, to these developers.
Yes, and I want to remind what Henk said about hiring. Like we have a very we choose people with whom we will work. Very important for us. And also in Estonia and here in Prague, I believe that the people whom you either know, you have worked before, or are referred by people whom you trust, are the best choices we have made. And it's obviously much easier to start in the new place where you already have so many great people who either would come to work for you or just can refer somebody. And again, like It was a coincidence. We haven't planned to open it so soon. But when I was on vacation in Turkey, I was scrolling LinkedIn and I saw Thomas saying, "Hey, I'm available." Like not to me specifically, but just on LinkedIn. So I thought, maybe we should do something about it. So I wrote to Thomas, and at the same moment I also wrote to our CEO saying, "Hey, there is one guy who is really good available at this moment." And we agreed with Thomas to have a call. And before the call, CEO is writing me, "Hey, like board approved, we open an office in Prague." And it's like, okay, that was very fast. So sometimes, such decisions are taken really fast.
And it's supposed to be like the office only for developers, am I right?
It will be a developing office. We try to keep product managers and product designers next to the team of developers. So there will be also product people here in the office. Yeah, and also all the facilities like HR and office manager and so on.
And your goal is how many people you're planning to hire in the next year? Because I read something about 100 developers in the next year. So this is really some strategy for you?
So in 1 year it's probably hard to hire 100 people. Just again, not because there is so many people, but because it can actually ruin the culture. We want this team to be strong, have strong bonds together, to make sure that every person is actually good and can be part of this team. So we're probably not going to hire 100 people in 1 year, but in Estonia we managed to double our engineering organization for like 4 years in a sequence, like it was 10, 20, 40, 80 and 160. 160 was already hard. But up to 80, it was possible to double our organization in a year. So maybe like 4 years we'll have 100 people.
Okay, so now I would like to ask Radek, who is here, like, the professional, external professional, who could maybe comment, on it. So do you think that Pipedrive has what it takes, to succeed here on the local market with the local competitions, with, what are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, so first of all, I believe that Prague is a great place to open a developing office. There's tons of great developers. And also geographically, it's a beautiful place because if you plan to relocate people from all around the world, Prague is the place you want to live, right? Not like London or Tallinn. So, so it is a great place to work as a developer, and I think it is a good step because it is relatively easy to find and motivate people here to work. The second thought is that Pipedrive has a very good like a name in between the developers. There are some brands that are like not very popular between the developers, but Pipedrive is one of those that if you ask practically any developer if he believes that Pipedrive is a good place to work for, I believe that you get very positive answer. So if you connect those two facts and also like some reasonable strategy and good product plan and reasonable way how you want to lead the office, I think that the chances that you'll hire very good developers are super high.
Okay, and in terms of business, if you can have a look around, for the market with, CRMs and other softwares, do you think that it's like an overload here, or still, for the customers, it makes sense, to go with Pipedrive?
Well, I believe for customers it doesn't matter much where you have the development office. If it's in some reasonable part of world, right? You don't want to open a developing office in India and hoping that the customers will love your product. So I believe that Prague is developed enough that you can build a very solid team. I really don't believe that customers care that much about where you build it. If the product team is very solid and smart and has a clear vision, which in Pipedrive I believe they have. They don't try to focus on everyone. They don't try to go after huge corporations. They don't try to have every deal they can. But they have very strong focus. That's word that I liked a lot as well. So yes, I believe there are good chances that the team here will be very successful.
Okay.
Maybe I would add one thing. Thank you for helping me selling Pipedrive. You did a really good job. But I would make one thing clear. Unless you have a lot of people from Skype in your social networks, I don't think that many developers know Pipedrive actually in Czech Republic. So it's my job to make it known and to actually tell people what are the values and what are the benefits of Pipedrive as an employer. So I'm just adding.
One more thing, but Pipedrive is also, to my thing, it's also a good size company, right? It's not a corporation. Mm-hmm. But it's not like very small startup where you fight for a living like practically every month. So I think that's for people that are maybe not ready for huge corporation or are ready to leave the huge corporation. So that can be a good place to go. So and if they are not willing to risk with some super small startup.
So you think that they really are able to retain that startup spirit and this culture to really cooperate in the smaller teams and not in the large teams where it's not so easy. Okay.
Yeah.
Tomáš, what is your strategy here in Prague, since you are like the engineering and the local guy for the local operations? What is your strategy in the next year?
I already mentioned it a little bit. The strategy is to show what Pipedrive is. Many people don't. If you are not in sales, you don't know what Pipedrive as a product is. Luckily, we have a lot of customers already. When I take my Pipedrive hoodie, people stop me on the street and say, "Oh, you are from Pipedrive. I know you, and I love Pipedrive." So it's nice to hear that. But these are salespeople, and sadly, we are not hiring sales here yet. My main strategy is actually.
Okay.
my main strategy is actually do brand awareness and have people understand what Pipedrive is as a product, and especially for developers, also to understand how is our technical stack, what is it like to work at Pipedrive, and how happy they can be. And
do you have some metrics for it?
Metrics for happiness? My metrics is number of people to join. You heard Sergey, I have to hire 100 people. That's my metric. And
for these developers and for your team here in Prague, do you have some metrics, some numbers where you would like to be, from now on, the next year? What is the state where you would like to go?
We don't, and I think it's a good thing we don't, because we really don't want to rush hiring. Mm-hmm. I want to people come and grow the team at the right pace. So I don't need to be sitting here and have 10, 15 people hired by the end of the year. We will see how many people we'll actually hire, and whatever amount we will hire, it will be the right amount. So luckily, I don't have metrics I need to follow.
Okay, and what do you think you have regarding, to these potential developers and new colleagues? What would you like to offer them? If you can compare, I understand the smaller teams and interesting projects. So what would you offer them? Why they should be interested in cooperation with Pipedrive?
Yeah, the environment is very competitive, so it's very hard to attract developers. Everybody will tell you that. The question I got all the time was, why Prague? It's supposedly crowded. There is no room to hire developers here. Of course there is room. You just need to give the right value. And it's very easy to give employees good salary, nice office, and kind of fancy environment. But these days, developers are looking for more. They just want to be able to have some freedom to create. They just want to live with the product, and whenever they have ideas or they want to participate on ideas of others, they want to have the freedom to do so. So this is, I think, the greatest value that we can have on top of what is kind of standard on the market. And Pipedrive is currently ongoing great transition inside the engineering team. I think Sergey will be much better to talk about it because he has been at the beginning when this transition has happened. But I think this is the greatest thing we can offer.
Yeah, so just in general, what Pipedrive can offer, and again, it's probably not for everyone. It depends on your personal value, what you actually want to have in your life. But we are looking for people who actually want to have responsibility, because responsibility gives you the power, and you can have an impact on people's lives. And what we try to do in engineering is to push this responsibility to each individual developer, because I was myself a developer, and I know what kind of, like, if you have all the ability to do everything yourself, you don't have anyone behind your back or somebody standing in front of you and like checking every step, like how much you can do yourself without like needing to prove that you can do it, or like, so in Pipedrive we actually set every process so that each developer can have as much impact as he is able to do, actually. Starting from the continuous deployment, where developer any moment can decide that his code is good enough and can go in production, and it will be in production in 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. And ending with design sessions with product managers going and talking to the customers. So again, it's not for everyone, but those people who actually want to take this responsibility might consider. And the transition, what Thomas was talking about, again, it's just like we always try to improve the processes and how we organize our work. So when we started, we said, okay, we want these independent teams who can run in parallel. And when we want to do more things in parallel, we are going to hire a new team and give them this new task or like this new problem to solve. But at some point, we ended up with 20 small independent teams, and this system actually is a bit rigid. Like if you're a developer and end up in one team, it's very hard to move into another team. Or if this, like, you can't even, sometimes if your team is like too small, you can't even go on vacation because you would fail your team, right? So we decided, okay, let's make these teams a bit bigger. And then inside the team, there are two types of work. One type of work is where you actually have to maintain your components. Like there are bugs, you have to be on call. Our developers are actually being on call. Like you build it, you run it, the philosophy we have. So there is this maintenance job. And then there is this exciting creativity where you're creating new functionality, solving new problems, creating new components. This is where everyone gets excited. Maintenance maybe not so exciting for most. And if you're in a small team, you have to do both all the time, constantly switching. And that means that you can't actually progress with the new features fast enough. So we said, okay, let's not switch very frequently. Let's say that if you want to create something new, you join a mission. A mission is a problem which we know exists in our customers, and we set or create a mission, a team, small team, which is going to solve this problem, right? Mm-hmm. And you go and focus totally on solving this problem, while other guys keep the system running. And then you're coming back from a mission, and you, for some time, keeping the system running, and others can go and solve other problems. So this is kind of rotational system, which seems to be working really nice. And yeah, it's a combination we learned from other companies, from Spotify, from Facebook, from Here Maps, but adapted it to our own kind of situation.
Okay, Radek, what do you think about this approach to development, this strategy, this multi-teams and some base, for the system? What do you think about it?
I believe that scaling agile team is the hardest thing in development in general, because when you start learning about agile and about ways how to develop fast, it sounds kind of understandable and it's relatively easy, right? And if you have a team that's like up to 10, 12, 15 people, it is super easy. But then when you realize you need to scale it, no one will tell you how to do it, basically. There are some crazy frameworks, like SAFe, it's one of them. It's like, this is when you want to take Agile and do it the corporate way. I don't believe it works. The way that Pipedrive is using, I believe it can be working. I have no practical experience with it, but I believe it can be helping to allow people to be motivated, right? Because if you allow them to jump from one work to another, not too quickly, not too often, but when you allow them to work on different things, I think that can be very, very motivating for them. Maintenance work is never fun. Some teams, like mine, take the approach that the entire team is actually responsible for the maintenance. So we rotate the DevOps and on-calls through the actual team. So every week one developer has the duty to take care of the product. But again, when you scale the team, it's much harder, and you need to figure out. I believe there is no perfect way how to do this, or no one actually corrected yet. And it's our responsibility, the companies like us and CTOs like us, to experiment and to look for the better way how to do this.
So, do you think that if the companies like you will start being, more agile in these processes, that definitely is good, for the whole market here?
So I believe that these days everyone is trying to be agile. From the smallest startup to Microsoft, everyone is trying to be agile. Some companies are good at it, some not. I don't know the best way how to do it. I just know, I just can see the symptoms. If the developers are happy, if the development cycle is fast, if the developers feels responsible for the product, and they are eager to fix it and to have the best quality, that those are signs of good agile team, right? Mm-hmm. If they are not just following some Gantt charts, or if there are no heavy processes, if people communicate a lot, if you talk to customers, you heard a lot about talking to customers. All these things are, according to me, good signs of agile team. But that's not it, right? You can have agile team, but that doesn't ensure the motivation of the team. That doesn't ensure that the developers are actually happy, or even more, that doesn't ensure that the product will be successful. Mm-hmm. So you need to connect all those dots together.
Okay, and what is your industry outlook if you could compare the Czech startup scene with the Estonian or US? What are your thoughts about it in the terms of SaaS, startups?
So in Estonia, the market gone crazy, because there are multiple very successful startups. Like TransferWise was maybe 2 years ahead of Pipedrive for many years. Taxify got 150 million investment this year. Altogether, there were 300 million investments only this year happened in Estonia. The same amount was last year. So its job market is just going crazy. And this is also one of the reasons why we decided to open Prague office, because we don't want to compete with these crazy companies just doubling the salaries, which has been happening in Silicon Valley as well, I think still happening. So Estonia kind of becoming a Silicon Valley of Europe, and we know it doesn't work. I mean, it's not good for companies. Mm-hmm. So that's why we came here. Hopefully we will manage to stay away from this craziness for some time until this scene also become super successful, and then we'll go somewhere else.
And sorry, just Sergey, one more question. Where do you see the biggest difference between Estonian startups? Because there are, as you mentioned, some unicorns of Europe, and the Czech Republic. Where do you think is the most important difference?
I think it's all started with Skype. Where now we see actually not even the second, but the third generation of Skype employees who are either starting a company or joining a company, and they small company, but they know how to grow it. And this is what contributes to success, because it's not enough to have a good idea. Also, you need to know how to execute, or what you would like this company to see in 5 years. And this helps actually companies grow. In Czech Republic, I think there are people who can do that. I think it's just need more entrepreneurial kind of spirit. And maybe a couple of bigger successes that people understand that it actually works, it actually can be done.
Okay, thanks.
If I may add my point of view here, I think it is really beneficial for Estonia to be so small, because it doesn't make sense to start a company and think only about the Estonian market. So by default, all the Estonian startups are thinking globally, which is very beneficial. Czech Republic is kind of big enough to be a good enough market for some of the startups, which may make them think too local at the very beginning, and then it may be hard to think globally towards the end. That's how I see the biggest difference, and that's how I explain to myself what makes Estonian startups much more successful globally.
Okay, and regarding, because you have experience from the US market as well, so how you would compare the US with this European market?
I would say the US market is more developed in a way that developers understand their personal value better than here. I mean, it's catching up clearly in Estonia much faster than here. But I could see developers wanting to participate on the next unicorn. So they would be seeking for startups and really wanting to work for startups, because they would hope that the time invested into that job will pay off much better than working for well-established companies. I could see that hunger, and when I would be interviewing for people into Skype, I would see developers being for 1 year on one startup and hopping to another. So there would be much more job hopping in a way. Sometimes it would be very opportunistic, but sometimes they would try a startup, they would see that the startup didn't work out, and they would go to a different one. So they were willing to take much more risks, let's say, with the hope that it will pay off. So if I compare this to, let's say, the Czech market, I can see that developers are a little bit more conservative, and they like to think better before.
Okay.
before they join a startup, and I think in a nutshell, this is the biggest difference. Younger people, obviously. Or maybe it means I should stop talking now. But I think this is the biggest difference. I'll pause here.
Thank you, Tomas. And Radek, what are your thoughts about the local market?
Well, I'm pretty sure that Estonia is definitely a capital of Europe for startups. I don't know why, actually. One of the things that the developers here can learn from developers from Estonia is the approach. Here in Prague, I still can see a lot of developers are, going to the job, turning some hours, earning the money, being friendly and happy for work they do, but still approaching it as a work. In Tallinn, the early years I've been working for Skype, everyone was like, totally living Skype. There was, people were not doing it for money or for the brand. They were just living it. And I think that this is something that we here in Prague need to learn, because I think that this is the break point when from very good team you can get awesome team that will make your product awesome. And that's something that I think that Silicon Valley is slowly losing, because thanks to huge competition that's there. And opening a startup in Silicon Valley is the worst idea you can have, right?
Yeah,
Skype opened the office there, but it wasn't because we would have a great developers there. We had some great developers, but it's super hard to attract them. I think it was more about if you have an office in Silicon Valley, you have immediately higher value. But the competition is absolutely crazy there, and there is no point in trying to attract people there because they are well paid. They worked on absolutely awesome products. So was the reason to move, right?
Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen. And now, guys, if you could give us some more chairs so we can invite all other guests on the stage, and let's have a look on the Q&A. Okay, so thank you again, all of you, that you came here. So what is your approach to scaling across EU? Because we are mostly talking about Czech Republic and this market. So around it, what is your approach? Maybe Sergey?
Yeah, I think it was the first question at the very beginning, before we even started. So I checked the slide. So, well, scaling across EU, we are pretty well scaled across EU. We have Tallinn, we have Tartu, which is in the second. Uber is not driving there. So Tartu is a university city in Estonia. We have Lisbon, we have Prague, we have London. So I think it's enough for you, right? But I mean, in terms of offices, but we also have 1/3 of our customers in European Union. So it's also. So what about Uber? How are you scaling in EU?
So right now we have. So in general, we tend to have a lot of offices, but most of those are marketing or operations. So those are fairly small. Think like 3 people in a certain city. And then in terms of actual engineering and development offices, in the EU, we have Amsterdam, which is our largest. We are in Aarhus, Denmark, Sofia as well. And we're also in...
Tartu?
No, not in Tartu. I guess it's Tallinn as well. Huh. Actually, so that's the office I haven't been to.
No, yeah, I think you mixed up. No, in Tallinn we have Taxify.
Oh, see, that's the one. So a couple. And then around the world, we operate also. So San Francisco is our main engineering office. We're in Seattle, New York City, Toronto, Bangalore, Hyderabad in India, and since recently, Sao Paulo.
And Facebook?
Facebook's everywhere. But specifically in terms of offices, we have a very big engineering office in London, which I'm part of. Dublin is huge as well, so London, Dublin. And then we have sales offices pretty much in every city that supports our advertisers with everything, sales and support.
Yeah. So there is also a fun fact. When I was working on this Facebook calling project, Philip Su was my counterpart in Facebook, and he then went on and opened a London office. So
yeah, we're expanding pretty heavily. So if any of you want to move to London, you're more than welcome.
I think to the original question was like, what is the approach to scaling? Like, yes, we have a bunch of different offices in different places. What we're looking for is there sort of a local ecosystem and other companies who are also attracting talented people? Is there a good university there where people are graduating who are interested in this kind of things? But also a really big one that we look at, are people willing to move to that city if we hire them from another country? Is the city itself, does it provide like good connection? Like, is there an airport that connects to a lot of different places? Is there good education? Is the healthcare system accessible? All these kind of things are really important once we start like seriously hiring people and trying to get them to move there.
Yeah. So as you can see, we took a totally different approach. Like all our offices, except London, have very poor flight connections. Like Well, yeah, Tartu is very bad. You have to drive. Like,
Okay, guys, I think we understand
yeah,
it.
okay.
This topic is about Tartu.
Okay, let's move on.
So, what solutions are planned for account management and customer success? I guess for a Pipedrive, absolutely.
All right. I don't think we have anything specific in the plans that are addressing these roles. We continue to focus relentlessly on the salesperson, but we do know that a lot of salespeople, as we observe and talk to customers, do the whole set of things from prospecting up to account management. So we do pay attention to a lot of this information, and our solutions try to, fit these problems when they're very, very common. But we don't have like a straight distinction between this role and.
I believe it's related to the second question, like, because right now it's like very cruel endpoint. So you get the deal and you close it,
Yes.
and the question is about,
Yeah, so I mean, we do know of a lot of customers that use Pipedrive for account management and customer success, but it's not meant for that. It's meant for the first sales cycle. Want to add something to this, Hank?
I can add that we actually, as a strategy, we want to cover the whole kind of revenue side of a business of SMB. That includes account management. It's just haven't got there yet. So maybe, hopefully, we hire these engineers in Prague, and maybe the first 20 won't work on this, but the second 20 will work on account management. Who knows?
Okay, maybe do you have some thoughts about Czech Republic for Uber? Some special solutions, if we are in the terms of it?
All right, so I unfortunately can't say anything specific about the Czech Republic. So sorry about that. But I think the one thing that is something that has been like really quite interesting about how Uber has approached sort of scaling to different countries and operating in different countries is that we always hire people locally to run our business, right? So we'll when we went to Paris was our first international city, and we hired a full French team, and then the same, like we did the same in the Czech Republic, we did the same in any country where we went into, and we give these people the full authority and responsibility to figure out like what is the service that we want to offer in this market, and that comes back to the tooling and platforms that I described earlier that we build. We not only build those for engineers, but we also build them for our operations people. And that means that they literally have a web tool where they go like, okay, I think the different in the limousine service is like needs to be called Black in a lot of countries. That's what we call it, or Uber Pop, and I think Select is here as well. Those are those names, the pricing, how many cars are available. All these things are set by the local team, and that's how we've been able to scale to so many different places, because you would not be able to figure out what the local market needs if you're sitting with a spreadsheet in San Francisco. And I think that is being one of the underrated and underestimated strengths of Uber, that we've been able to do this in parallel in so many cities with local people.
Would you like to add something? Because I saw the official Facebook event, which was made maybe one week ago here for the local SMBs. So I don't know if you could tell us some thought, if there is some interest in terms of the Czech Republic and Facebook here.
So we want to help businesses of all sizes, and SMB is a huge focus for us, and we have over 5 to 6 million advertisers who use Facebook as their primary way of reaching their customers. So that way every country and every region becomes important, and helping them realize their true value is what we want them to get to, right? So we allow for local teams to help them achieve that, and that's there in Czech Republic as well. We have a client council too that we do, where we bring our largest and most innovative clients over to talk to other clients and tell them how they use Facebook to reach their audiences.
Okay, thanks. Oh, so Okay, so maybe second one. It was mentioned that Pipedrive is focused on sales people. How are you planning to empowering sales users with marketing intelligence about their clients?
So one of the things we've been seeing lately is the boundary between sales and marketing blurring more and more every day. So oftentimes it's really difficult to really understand, is this particular use case a marketing use case or a sales use case? Like email tracking or sending multiple emails at the same time, or kind of automating something about outreach, or kind of scheduling a meeting. All of these things can go either way. So sometimes it's really difficult to say if it's about sales or marketing, and especially in SMBs, it's the same thing. It's the same people kind of just trying to generate revenue and trying to kind of close customers. It doesn't really matter how we call it. But marketing intelligence about the clients, I mean, we have certain things already. One of the things is smart contact data, where you have an email address where you can gather other stuff about that customer quickly with one click. But there are some other things coming that will probably make it a lot more easier in the future. But we also have this kind of habit of not talking about future features before they launch. So kind of watch this space.
Maybe, Marin, if you could pick the second one. What are your major competitors and how you differentiate your product with them?
Who are our major competitors and how we're different? So our biggest competitor is pen and paper. That's the biggest one. Like millions of, tens of millions of users. The second biggest competitor are spreadsheets. So that's kind of split between Microsoft Excel and Google Sheets. I mean, it's pretty easy to see how we're better than Post-it notes, right? So we are much more reliable, and the data doesn't get lost, and it's kind of organized in a better way. Spreadsheets is a tough one. It's like it's really easy to get going with spreadsheets, and they don't really kind of slow you down, especially in the beginning. So it's a really tough one. Oftentimes, if people don't like their tool, then they kind of fall back to spreadsheets or Post-it notes. Yeah, we're kind of really trying hard to kind of be better than spreadsheets. When it comes to kind of more focused competitors, yeah, there's many of them. I think our relentless focus on salespeople and on this kind of segment of people that are kind of closing sales manually and kind of going through this complex sales process really gives us an edge. So some people might say that, yeah, you're kind of narrowing your potential market and yada yada. I don't really believe in that. I believe in focus, and I believe that there are millions of salespeople, millions of SMBs, and kind of focusing on a segment really gives us an edge and makes us better than any other competitor that might have kind of fancy stuff and then the free versions of this and that, but kind of they're kind of good for everything and therefore good for nothing.
Okay, so thank you very much. Maybe last two questions, and after that, definitely you will have the time to spend more time with all of the amazing speakers here. Yeah, this one. Tomáši, how exactly are you going to raise brand awareness about Pipedrive? How will you sell open positions? What do skilled developers care most about?
So how I guess I'm not supposed to speak anymore today. How exactly? This is how. Welcome. This is one of our first events. This is the first event. I think developers we are mostly interested in developers who want to learn and who want to grow. So meetups is a great way how to meet such developers. So that's one type of event that we'll be organizing. The other type are hackathons. So we will be hosting a hackathon in November here in Prague, focused on mainly third-party developers who are integrating Pipedrive into other tools. So that's another type of event. And we will be just active on different kind of conferences and just spreading the Pipedrive word. That's the main strategy. And in terms of what kind of positions, we mentioned that product designers, product managers, and all different kinds of developers. Our main technical stack is Node.js and React. We are organized in a microservices architecture. So I think our technical stack itself is attractive enough for many developers to want to learn more about us. And this is about skills, but for me it's also about soft skills. So really developers who want to get better and who want to enjoy the freedom that Sergey was talking about. Because with freedom comes also responsibility. So it's not for everybody. Once we kind of spread this message, I'm sure that it will be much easier to find the right people.
Is this work? Oh, okay.
It doesn't work for me.
And one of the last, so have any of the scandals your company's been through affected you in any way? Talking about Cambridge Analytica, Kalanick.
Yeah, sure.
He seems eager to answer.
No, I mean, it's a good question. So I've been at Uber for 4 years. The class is still fine. That's good. I've been at Uber for 4 years, and so I joined when we had about 1,000 people, and now we have a little over 20,000 people. And in that time, I've seen a lot of change, and obviously we've had a pretty rough year last year, and what I think has been really, a lot of things went wrong, and we've done a lot of things wrong. And that is, it's painful to go through that. It's painful to see that. I think it's also something where even if in your office of your team, those things might not have happened, it's obviously incredibly painful to see that it has happened in other places of the company. And I think what we've done really well is that we have really taken it as an opportunity to change and to improve. So if we look at our top 20 people, 30 people right now, I would say there's only one person left who is there for longer than like 2 years. We've looked very, very seriously at the things that have happened and who was responsible for that, and how that responsibility spread throughout the company, and the policies that we use to enforce some of that. And we have very rigorously adjusted that. So for all the bad things that have happened, I think it was a very painful time for us to go through, but we've come out much stronger and better at the end. And I think the fact that we have a new leadership team is sort of the strongest signal for that, and the most public one. But there's so much under the hood and internally that has changed, which is also why I'm still there. Like, that is what makes me optimistic about the place. So it has been it is a very different company right now, for the better.
Okay, and the last one, how do you empower sales users to make data-driven decisions about their potential clients and what is planned for the future? Who would like to answer it? Sergey.
Yeah, so as Martin was saying, the idea was to build a tool which is actually useful for salespeople, right? And when they're using it all the day, in and out, they actually generate a lot of data. And this is different from the tools which are meant for the managers who actually force people to enter the data. They enter the data maybe on Friday evening just to satisfy the requirement from the manager, but such data doesn't actually give any insights. Only the actual usage data can give insights, and right now, what we're doing, we have a very small but mighty AI team, which is actually exploring this data and also looking for opportunities to get more data, which can, in the future, actually help salespeople to sell better and more efficiently. So this is what we are doing, but it's a really early phase. We need more customers. We need these customers to use the product more. That will give us more data, which can be used in the future to help salespeople.
So thank you very much again, guys, for your participation during these discussions and all of you who could be part of it. Right now, we can move for another part, which is to celebrate, discuss, do some networks. Definitely what I mentioned at the beginning, yeah, after that. Just one of my colleagues remind me something. But what I would like to say before we'll proceed to the next, many or some other Pipedrive guys are coming around with the black shirt, with the P letter. So definitely, if you would like to ask about anything, because you have from the different backgrounds, different professions, definitely you can ask them about maybe some potential jobs, I don't know, whatever. And yeah, I don't know, would you like to add something, Tomas, right now? Because we are co-organizing all this event, so would you like to add something?
Yeah, make sure that you stay, you network with us, and you eat all the food, because there's a lot of food. So don't go home yet.
Okay, so thank you very much, all of you guys. And we would like to just... yeah, thanks.